Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the November 2022 WordPress News Roundup here on iThemes Training. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the host here at iThemes Training, and once a month we take a look across all the things that are happening in the WordPress world and bring you the news that we think is important particularly for those of us who are building and managing websites. So we have a lot to talk about today because since last time we were together in a news roundup, we have had a major core release of WordPress. So let's start out with news from core, shall we? If you're just joining us in Zoom, make sure you've downloaded today's slides, the link to which is there in the chat waiting on you. If you're watching this on the replay, just click the download handout button and you'll have these. Slides are important on the news roundup, especially because all the links to all the things, if you want to read more, are right there and clickable in those slides. So we did just have a core WordPress major release on November the 1st. That was WordPress 6.1. Misha, named for the Ukrainian-born jazz pianist Mikhail Misha Alperin. This is the third and final major release of WordPress in 2022. 800 people from 60 countries and 179 identified companies contributed to WordPress 6.1, which is awesome. And the really neat statistic, especially about this release, is that about 35% of those people who contributed were first-time contributors to WordPress, which is awesome. And that is a much higher ratio than previous releases. So this is really great. And what it means is more people are getting involved in the WordPress project and contributing their code magic to the core of WordPress to make it work better for all of us. And that's really great. So currently WordPress powers 43% of websites worldwide. Pretty awesome. So one of the major things that was a big change here in WordPress 6.1 are notable performance improvements on 19 different core components, especially the WP query caching, which I'll talk about in just a minute. One thing that was pulled from WordPress 6.1 was the WebP by default, converting images to the WebP, the more economical size-wise and speed-wise WebP format. That's going to be pushed to a feature plugin. We'll see that happening sometime next year. There were also lots of improvements. The big deal about WordPress 6.1 was continued improvements on the site editor and full site editing and the block editor. So you had a lot of new blocks like the table of contents block and upgrades to existing blocks for usability. All those have been added to the Gutenberg plugin over the last couple of months since the last major release of WordPress. And those are merged into core at each major release. So all the things you've seen us talking about on News Roundup over the last several months happening in the Gutenberg plugin, all those were merged into core in WordPress 6.1. Big improvements in the full site editing suite with more templates and block patterns and some changes to the way that whole system works. There's a new default block theme, which is the 2023 theme. And of course, additional ongoing accessibility improvements as always. Full details are in the official core field guide, which is available here at this link. Or if you'd like, you can watch the WordPress 6.1 launch event, which we did a couple weeks ago with our own Timothy Jacobs, who is the lead developer of iThemes Security. He's also a core contributor and one of the maintainers of the REST API for WordPress core. That was a fantastic training event, which you can rewatch at that link right there. Let's talk a little bit more about those improvements to the WP query. The performance team has done an incredible job to make everything perform faster in WordPress 6.1. So the real issue here is the caching of database queries. So as you know, probably WordPress stores all the text and all the data for arranging your pages and posts and custom posts and all that stuff in the database, which means by default, whenever a page or post is loaded, WordPress goes out to the database, pulls that information back in, and then displays it on the screen for the browser. Database queries take time, and especially on some pages, you could have many database queries. So the menu is a query, the page is a query. If you have multiple loops on the page, that's going to be a query as well. And so by caching those queries and putting that information in the cache, it avoids WordPress having to go out to the database each time. So it's bypassing that whole slower database calls, and really, really good. WordPress site should run faster, especially when paired with an object cache like most WordPress caching plugins offer. Johnny Harris tweeted in WordPress 6.1, a massive improvement in database performance. Database queries and WP Query are now cached. A ticket I had been working on for 5+ years now has been merged into core. This should result in billions of less repeated database queries. That is awesome. Now, if you watch the WordPress 6.1 launch event with Timothy Jacobs a couple weeks ago, you'll note, you may remember actually, that he said there's a few little bugs that have happened in WordPress 6.1, and it might be best to wait until the first minor release behind 6.1, which actually happened a week ago today. That was WordPress 6.1.1. Very minor patch, fixed 29 bug fixes, 21 bug fixes in the block editor. No known widespread issues with this update. This is the time to go ahead and update your sites to 6.1.1. And I've had no issues, as some of you are mentioning there in the chat as well. Pretty safe to update now if you've been putting off, like I usually do, until the first minor release following a major release. The WordPress 6.2 roadmap is still a bit of a mystery. Most of the dates are still to be determined. The alpha trunk was opened last month, and there's some work being done towards 6.2. There's no other information. We would probably expect a February, March-ish release for WordPress 6.2. We'll fill you in on that as soon as those dates become available. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about something else that happened in core. We mentioned this last month in that the executive director of the WordPress project, Josepha Hayden Champosi, talked about let's maybe rename full site editing to something else, because that term was getting a little confusing. And after some feedback and discussion in the core forums, the term full site editing has been replaced by site editor. So that's a very clear and simple description to users with a wide range of technical skills. It's easily translatable into multiple languages. And so what you've seen is maybe the template editor or the full site editing suite that allows you to edit templates and menus and headers and footers and all that stuff in core WordPress. It's a work in progress. That is now there's a new banner to describe all of that, and it is the site editor. So that the post here says this should be considered an official update to WordPress's shared lexicon. So now when you see the term site editor, that's what it's talking about, the full site editor, wherein the block editor is used to edit headers and footers and page templates and those sorts of things. So and something else that's coming in core is fairly interesting, is a new feature plugin has been made available by WordPress developer Andy Fragan, who is also a practicing surgeon. Andy is a really interesting person in the WordPress community. If you've ever had a chance to hear him speak, he is very engaging. Again, a practicing surgeon who does WordPress development as a hobby, and he's brilliant. So he has a new plugin called Plugin Dependencies that seeks to deal with a problem that maybe you've experienced with particular add-on plugins in WordPress. So sometimes if an add-on plugin, and by that I mean, here's a little feature that we're going to add on to a very popular plugin that a lot of people are using. And so maybe it's another set of developers who are using, maybe adding on to something of a bigger, more widely used plugin. Sometimes if you just install that little add-on plugin, it can break your site because it's expecting the major mother plugin per se to be present. And if it's not there, then things break. So this new plugin called Plugin Dependencies, it's a feature plugin. Feature plugin is a technical term inside the WordPress universe, which means we are developing this plugin with a view to have it merged into core, take this core code and merge it into core. And that's really good. It just simply allows a way for plugin developers to say, this plugin must be active in order for this add-on to function. It's fairly simple, but I think that's going to really help a lot of folks, especially novice users, not breaking their sites accidentally. So that's out there and working. If you want to play around with it, you can do so. There's the link to the plugin. And here on the call for testing post in the core blog, there's a few things that Andy and team are asking for folks to help him check out. So this is a great way to contribute to the WordPress project. You can be one of the beta testers of this plugin, which will ultimately be merged into core. Take 5 minutes and do it. Pretty cool. All right, let's move into news from Gutenberg and everybody's favorite additions to the WordPress platform. Gutenberg 14.4 was released back on October the 26th. It added a new navigation interface and larger previews of patterns right from the inserter. So look how this looks. It's pretty cool. Right here from the inserter, you click the plus and you have this nice list of patterns. So here's a header. I can just drag it right there into the editor, and there it is. So that's pretty cool. It's a whole new way. Like you've got the ability to do blocks there as well, where you can drag and drop. But right there, you see all these predefined block patterns that go with a theme, and it makes it really easy just to pull that down, find what you're looking for, preview, drag, and drop. Very, very nice. They've also added a distraction-free writing interface. This was something that was in the classic editor and has been missing a bit from the block editor, and I actually really like this. Take a look here. So we click the kebab menu, we click distraction-free, and look, it's just your text on the page. I really, really like this. I use an app for distraction-free writing frequently on the desktop, and this is a really nice application, I think, of a distraction-free writing mode for the block editor. Really easy to use. Just click it, distraction-free, and boom, everything else goes away, and you can just focus on writing. Pretty nifty. Also, there's the addition of the ability to better access image captions right from the block editor. See how this works. When you mouse over an image, look, there's now a new icon for captions, and it just takes you right there to type in the caption. That's pretty nice. I like that a lot. Very intuitive for especially basic users. One addition to the site editor is now the ability to lock the navigation block. So we've seen block locking as one of the things that was added in WordPress 6.1, where you can lock whole groups of blocks at a time, not just individual block by block. Now you have the ability to lock the nav blocks. So if like a client can't get in there and mess that up, you have the ability to lock each of those blocks as well from the site editor. Pretty cool. They've also given us the ability to access the new fluid typography options that have been added recently. Pretty nice. And then also some other performance enhancements as usual. So that was Gutenberg 14.4, released a few weeks ago. The next version of Gutenberg was released back on November the 9th, and that was 14.5. And there's a really interesting addition to this version of Gutenberg that I really like. So they've changed a little bit up at the top, that nice list view that drops down and shows you the kind of in a, well, it's a list view of all the blocks on a page, and you can real easy get around to things right there. They've changed that a little bit. Down at the bottom now, you see some word count and characters, those sorts of things are down toward the bottom of the list module. But look at this. They've given us a new document outline panel, which is super cool. It basically pulls all the H tags out of your content and puts them right there in outline view, where you can at a glance spot, oh, wait, I've got an H4 after an H2. I need to change that around. And you can click that. It takes you right to the spot on the page where you can deal with that. It's really nice, especially if you have like a really long form content. It's an easy way to just navigate through that by the H tags. And if you like in the list view, it just says heading. It doesn't tell you which H tag that's there. The outline will actually tell you if it's H1, H2, and whatnot. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I like this a lot. There is also some new block spacing controls with real-time preview, which is pretty nice. You can see the padding going here. These are the sorts of things they've been adding to blocks a bit at a time. But this is here within a whole column, a whole group of items. That's pretty cool. Of course, other minor bug fixes and enhancements in that Gutenberg 14.5 release. That's the latest one back on November the 9th. There's a great little story here on WP Tavern about Gutenberg contributors exploring what they're calling a new browse mode. If you have played around with the site editor, it's kind of frustrating. I'm going to be honest. For our WordCamp Birmingham website, we used the new 2023 theme, block theme, and decided we're just going to do the whole full site editing thing. What could possibly go wrong, right? And the answer is a lot. It was really complicated to use. It is not the easiest thing to get around in. And the Gutenberg contributors, the really smart developers, are thinking a lot about how we can make that better. So this is a proof of concept. It's not even rolled anywhere near rolling into the plugin yet. But look, here at the top, they're suggesting, oh, we could have a list of recently viewed pages, or we could search here like for recipe and pull that right up and just jump straight to that page right there at the top. So that's, I think, would help a lot when it comes to navigating around in the site editor, because it is not terribly intuitive right now. And I'll just leave it at that. So glad to see some work is being done on that interface, because it really, I think, needs it. All righty, let's roll forward into some security news. Here's some stats from this month's vulnerability report. 78 plugin vulnerabilities have been patched. 31 plugin vulnerabilities are either currently active or the plugin has been closed. And there are 2 theme vulnerabilities this month that have been patched. A relatively low month, all things considered. And I've been changing. If you've been in the news roundups lately, you've noticed a change in the way I'm doing these vulnerability reports, because I didn't want to read 800 different plugin names anymore. But what we decided to do is just bring to your attention this list right here. Ones that have an active vulnerability or they've been closed, because these are the ones you really need to pay attention to. These are ones that you need to remove from your sites, right? Simply deactivating the plugin is not enough, and that plugin really needs to be completely removed, because the vulnerable code still exists on your site as long as the plugin is present. So if you have any of these plugins, I would strongly recommend that you remove them. Now, by the way, for the lion's share of these, the 78 vulnerabilities that were patched, if you're using iThemes Security Pro, you would have gotten notice that there was a vulnerability in your twice-a-day scan. But also, using the version management feature with iThemes Security Pro, you can have iThemes Security automatically apply a patch if it exists. So for these 78, you wouldn't have had to do anything at all, but these 31 you definitely need to know about. So let's have a look here. 3D Print, AB Press Optimizer, Add Comments, Advanced WP Columns, Agent Easy Properties, the Affiliate Manager for Publishers, Analytics for WP, the Clerk plugin, Evaluate, Fancier Author Box, Find and Replace All, Follow Me plugin, Font Awesome 4 Menus, Grid Kit Premium, Hello Print, Image Hover Effect CSS3, Login Block IPs, Long Form ReCaptcha, Photospace Gallery, Postmag Themes Demo, Showing URL in QR Code, interesting, Simple Video Embedder, Testimonial Slider, Transposh. A lot of folks used to use this a long time ago. UG Countdown, Video Thumbnails, and this is not there's a Video Thumbnails plugin by Web Dev Studios. That's not this one. This is a different one. WP Best Quiz, WP Page Builder, WP Show Core, WPG Forum, and WP Upper Share Button. So if you have any of those on your sites, you want to get rid of those, remove them completely so that this vulnerable code is not on your site. Make sure you've signed up to the iThemes blog so that you get notifications whenever these vulnerability reports drop once a week. All right, let's turn the page to some news from iThemes. The iThemes 2022, start again. The iThemes 2022 Black Friday deals are now available, 40% off of iThemes products and bundles at iThemes.com/Black Friday. Cadence WP also 40% off of all new subscriptions, 25% off for existing customers that want to renew early. So there's the special link for that. Stellar WP also up to 40% off of all the brands in the Stellarverse. That's a new term we're using, apparently, the Stellarverse. I kind of like that. So you can take a look at all the Stellar WP goodness there. All right, really happy to say that this month's Customer Spotlight is on my friend Dave Braun. Dave has been a longtime member of the iThemes community, and there's a great write-up of Dave there on the Customer Spotlights page. So if you haven't read that, do that. Those of you that know Dave know, hey, he really deserves that great write-up. Glad to see him there. All right, something else that you might want to know about is how to increase your sales using Cadence conversions. So we've done a lot of training on Cadence conversions in the past. It's been in several of our webinars. Here's a great blog post if you'd like to understand how Cadence conversions works. It's part of the Cadence Pro package. It's a thorough blog post about what to do, what not to do, and how to track conversions using the very powerful Cadence conversions add-ons. Also, there was a really nice webinar that the Cadence team did. It's available on YouTube right there to get better e-commerce conversions It was a teardown of a site with the Cadence team and the team from The Good. So watch that if you didn't. There's a lot of really great insight into converting well on an e-commerce site. All right. So this month's premium event here on iThemes Training is our annual Creating a Starter Site training series. This is a really in-depth webinar on building a starter site that serves as the basis for all your future development. Several new things this year. The first day, we're going to be installing WordPress, a deep dive into WP config, and then creating a plugin stack for our future website builds. Day 2 is all about customizing with a custom functions plugin, customizing the Cadence theme, setting plugin defaults, and creating basic page layouts. That is coming up next week. That is next Tuesday, Wednesday, from 1 to 3 p.m. each day, November 29th and 30th. The December is the second part of our starter site, which is optimizing our starter site. That's going to be coming up December 20th and 21st. So a bit earlier in December because of the holidays. We do that way every year. So day 1 foundations about spinning up a starter site, and then speed optimizations, which is always a very popular topic. Day 2 is customizations, preparing a site for a client, and the website launch process. Those are ready to register for now. If you'd like to go out and do that, it's right there on the training site once you have logged in. All right, coming up on iThemes Training, these events in yellow are highlighted. I do want to make a note for members that office hours this week is tomorrow because Thursday's Thanksgiving here in the States. So make sure you are with us tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central for office hours. Get your questions in if you have them. Also, we did have to bump this back a week, but we do have scheduled the upgrading your WordPress websites to PHP 8 on November 28th. So that is next Monday. So it's an odd day. It is a Monday webinar, which we don't usually do, but because of holidays, we're kind of making some changes here. That is a Monday webinar, 1 o'clock Central on November 28th, which also just happens to be the date that PHP 7.4 hits end of life. So it's the, not the birthday, but whatever the opposite of that is, I guess the death day. Yeah, anyway, for PHP 7.4. So come and learn with us next Monday about upgrading to PHP 8. Starter site webinars coming up that week as well. Office hours. Plugin Roundup is scheduled for December the 6th, the final version of Fly 2022 for this year. And then our best of plugin roundup is December 13th, where we take all of the top votes from the last 6 months of plugin roundups and remind you of all those great plugins you forgot about in the meantime. All right. If you are not a member of iThemes Training, you can join, get a month free, take advantage of that Black Friday deal as well, and get 40% off if you want to buy the year. I believe training is included in that as well. I think it's worth it. You know, you get office hours, you get all the premium training all year long. All right, let's turn the page and talk about some plugins. We got some things going on in the plugin world, most specifically the fact that Cadence Blocks now supports pods. Isn't that cool? So those of you that are pods users, you can now connect directly into pods content. So that also pods now supports not only pods, but also ACF, Metabox, Toolset, and more. So pods users can connect right to Cadence elements and do some really cool things. I would imagine you might see some training about that coming up sometime in the near future. All right, got some theme news to talk about. The WordPress themes directory is adding style and variation previews, which is kind of cool. As you are looking at things in the theme directory, that's what you're seeing right here. So you can actually, right there, as you are looking at the theme details in the theme directory, switch between all the variations and see. That's kind of cool. For those of us that are building sites for clients, maybe not something we'd use very much because we kind of have our own theme. But you can imagine, especially for people that are doing their own sites, this is pretty cool, being able to see all these new theme variations. If they have more variation than what fits in a space, you'll get a carousel of all the variations, which is that's just kind of nice. I like that. Users will also be able to see a selected style variation loaded right there into the preview window. Pretty nice. So the meta team is continuing to work on this, and you'll see continued work on this. Sue is asking who came up with those colors. I guess the theme author did. There you go. All right, let's talk about e-commerce, shall we? Black Friday is about to come up. And just in time for that, WooCommerce 7.1 released a couple of weeks ago on November the 8th. 185 commits to WooCommerce Core from 37 different contributors, 162 commits to WooCommerce Blocks from 22 contributors. This is, even though it looks like a major release, WooCommerce doesn't do things like that anymore. They just use the next number, whether it's a major changes or minor changes. And you just have to read the developer blog, which is, you know, it is what it is. Developer.woocommerce.com. You ought to sign up for that and get updates if you manage WooCommerce sites. But this is a 7.1, which sounds like a major release, but actually it's pretty minor. It should be, they say it should be fully backward compatible with earlier versions. We've had no issues in the agency side upgrading to WooCommerce 7.1, no problems whatsoever. Some of the things that have happened new in WooCommerce 7.1 is a new product spotlight tour. So first time you install WooCommerce, you'll get a little tour spotlighting the different aspects of a product to kind of help people guide through the process, not like a wizard of setting up their first product. They've also added a cross-sell to the cart block. I think we actually mentioned this in the last news roundup. So you now have the ability in the cart block to turn on and off cross-sells. So cross-sells are what shows up as linked products. So if you go into products and you go down to linked products, this is where you can add cross-sells and upsells to, you know, sell something in addition to what the person is using. And so it looks something like this. Here's our editor. And right there, there's a cross, it's kind of small to see, but a cross-sells block you may be interested in. And there they are right there. You know, you have these in your cart. You might like these other things that go with it. So it's a great way to order bump with some additional sales. And that's now part of core WooCommerce. Now, here's the big news when it comes to WooCommerce. How many of you have been affected by some of these fraudulent orders that are happening a lot in WooCommerce? Basically, what's going on is people buy a list of compromised credit cards, and they're getting hit. You know, they'll just go onto a WooCommerce store and hit hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions, testing different cards to see if they're good. So this is something that's being talked about at the WooCommerce core level. John Brown, who's a developer, opened this topic after seeing fraudulent charges on 5 different websites that he apparently manages. About 1,200 successful transactions for $2.99 with 100,000 blocks. So the blocking was working well, but the problem is when you go make all those refunds, Stripe still charges you the processing fees, right? So that can get really expensive. 1,200 times, you know, whatever it is, that's pretty darn expensive. So Stripe didn't recognize and block the fraudulent charges, even though they all follow a similar pattern in some random Gmail address. So it actually had to resolve dispute transactions at $15 a piece. Holy cow. The undisputed refund cost was 40 cents. So that equated to lost revenue. In this case, $3,600 in fraud cost the site owner $1,940 to test this person's credit card. Really, really, really frustrating. So here's the deal. What do you do to prevent these kinds of card testing attacks? Add a ReCaptcha to your checkout process. Now, there is a paid WooCommerce official add-on for ReCaptcha. And I've said this multiple times on these webinars. I just have a moral objection to WooCommerce charging $50, $30, or whatever it is to add ReCaptcha to the checkout process. That should be a checkbox. But they do. But there's a free ReCaptcha plugin down here at the bottom, which you can use. There's also a plugin called Limit Orders that limits repeated orders that a person can make. You might want to look at both of those. You can also use Stripe's Radar fraud protection. That costs a little extra, but it might help you avoid these things. Avoid pay what you want donation products. Those sorts of products attract card testing, and quickly refund those fraudulent sales to avoid disputes. So if you're managing e-commerce sites, this is probably something you want to proactively let your clients know about. Hey, this is a thing that's happening. And so if you start seeing a bunch of sales like this, let me know immediately and let's do something about it. Yeah. All right. That's okay. That's a great question. I'll just take for a second in the chat. Don't usually do a lot of questions during News Roundup, but the question is, would that ReCaptcha in the checkout process interfere with other ReCaptchas running on the site? It can if you're using different versions of ReCaptcha. So the rule of thumb is that for a whole site, it should use one version of ReCaptcha. Now, various plugins can implement that version, but you can just set it up once in ReCaptcha, get that one site and secret key, and set that up in multiple plugins. So you don't want, for example, iThemes Security running version 3 to protect the login page, and WooCommerce adding version 2 to the checkout process. That's going to cause problems. As long as it's the same ReCaptcha, you should be fine, though. All right, let's talk about SEO, shall we? Google has pushed, maybe you saw this headline, Google has pushed Universal Analytics 360 to sunset in 2024. And everybody read that and probably thought, oh, it's all pushed back. And this is not the Google Analytics you're probably using. This is Google UA 360, which is an enterprise level Google Analytics solution. So that's the one they've pushed back an extra year, not the free version that most of us use. Standard Universal Analytics properties are still set to sunset on July the 1st of next year. So only if you're using UA 360 does this extra year apply. The rest of us who get it for free still are set on this July 1, 2023 deadline when it's going to go away. So Google cautioned its enterprise customers that performance will likely degrade on UA 360. I think it's the same tactic of the way Apple makes you buy a new phone by, maybe they slow things down. Who knows, right? They're probably going to slow things down a little bit to get enterprise clients to push to the new GA4. But one thing they will be doing, and we'll see how this works, the migration features, we'll see if that's just going to be in the enterprise level or if that'll be in standard level Google Analytics, if they'll be able to migrate some things, behavior modeling, custom channel grouping. We'll see how all that fleshes out, and we'll keep you apprised of those changes. Great blog post I ran across from a plugin that we actually saw, I think it was in our last plugin roundup, called Independent Analytics. How many of you remember that? If you were with us a few weeks ago for this month's plugin roundup, I think that's what it was, or it was either October or November of the plugin roundup. We talked about this new WordPress-based analytics opportunity called Independent Analytics. Now, caveat, this is a comparison post on the Independent Analytics blog, so they might be biased, okay? But it's a good overview of the options. It compares Google Analytics, Fathom Analytics, which is a very popular Google Analytics replacement. It's a paid option that is privacy focused, and this new Independent Analytics. So the summary basically is Google Analytics is feature rich. It is the most feature rich of all these offerings. It is free, but it can cause speed issues. And of course, it has those very well-known privacy issues. Fathom is fast. It is cookieless. It is privacy focused, but it costs $14 a month. Whereas Independent Analytics is fast and cookieless and privacy focused and free. So take a look at it. It's, read this blog post, learn a little bit more. Again, take this with a grain of salt because it is their blog post comparing their product against their competitors, but just give it a look. I think it's very, very interesting. Sherry, can you run both Google Analytics and Independent together? I would imagine so. Yeah. So just give that a look. I think it's worth considering. All right, let's talk about some other news. The 2022 Web Almanac final chapters have come together. The Almanac is a 729-page report in an ebook format. So they were the final bit was just added, which had to do with performance data. And by the way, if you wanted to look at the Web Almanac, there's the link down there. It's pretty good reading. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. Like you can really geek out and go super deep on some stuff. It's 729 pages after all, but it's kind of interesting stuff. But this performance data, which is really this story, is saying the authors of the report raised some concerns about the use of lazy loading in WordPress. So you might think, oh, it's just great to lazy load everything, but that can actually be a problem because WordPress sites may be overusing lazy loading. And when you do that, it can negatively impact the LCP metric for your speed metrics. So back when lazy loading was first introduced in WordPress in 5.5, every single image and media asset was lazy loaded. That was improved in 5.9, which only lazy loads images that are in the viewport. But the problem is a lot of plugins and themes are going around core behavior on this, and some things are not working right. Correcting this could cause hundreds or thousands of things and plugins to have to update. It could be a thing. So this is something we're watching. This was just reported. I'm going to keep my eye on this, and it's just interesting. And if the Web Almanac is something at least you should be aware of, and maybe take some time to peruse over the next few weeks if you have some downtime. Let's talk about the OpenVerse, shall we? We announced, oh gosh, it's probably been a year ago, that Automatic acquired the Creative Commons search. So the Creative Commons search was a spot where people would just upload free-to-use media from audio, video, photo, mostly photos, into a search engine. It was just free for anybody to use. Creative Commons license, you can just use it. Oftentimes, no attribution required whatsoever. Automatic acquired that and renamed it the OpenVerse. So now, OpenVerse has passed over 800. The audio catalog alone has passed 800,000 audio files. So OpenVerse visitors can now search for audio files for use in their videos, podcasts, other creative projects that are available for free. Search results can be filtered by usage, license, audio category, etc. Really, really cool stuff. So this is an idea that's still under development, and likely you're going to see a deeper integration with WordPress core that is on the roadmap. So imagine, for example, what it would look like if in your media library, there's a little tab there that says OpenVerse, and you just click on that, and now you can search right from core WordPress all these free images. Pretty cool stuff, right? Now, there's plugins that allow you to do these sorts of things with various image libraries. We've shown some of those in the plugin roundup, but this could be, you know, just another automatic property working together with core WordPress to just give you access to all those free images. Pretty cool stuff. So they're saying here, WordPress users could soon, whatever that means, have access within the editor to over 600 million free creative works that are available in the OpenVerse. Pretty cool stuff. All right, speaking of open, here's another open news story. This is OpenPress. So I don't know if you've seen anything about Twitter happening lately, but Twitter is a dumpster fire right now. A lot of things happening. A lot of folks are fleeing the platform for other spaces. And there's been a number of posts from the WordPress community about where you're going. I don't want to be on Twitter anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever you think about that, just be aware that there are a lot of folks in the WordPress community that are fleeing Twitter and looking for somewhere else. So this is a really interesting post from the folks at OllyWP asking the question, what if we used WordPress to power a community like this? So what would that look like? And that's what OpenPress is actually about. What if your website and the content that you're publishing could be connected to a network of other websites, a network powered by individuals, but connected as a community? So instead of going to a platform like Twitter to share valuable content, you do it directly from your website. Interesting, right? So your content remains yours. It can be shared and consumed within the WordPress community of OpenPress users. It's just an idea for now, but there's a sign up if you want to stay up to date on this project. You know, who knows if it's going to gain traction or not? I have no idea, but I've signed up on this mailing list, and I'll wait and see what they decide they're going to do with it. It may be absolutely nothing. Who knows? But I find it to be a very interesting concept. John says, who monitors it? I don't know if anybody would monitor it. It'd just be a network. Like you kind of subscribe to a blog and you would get connected to everyone in some sort of larger interface. So you monitor your own feed, basically. Yeah, I don't know. Again, this is all, you read about it on here on OpenPress.social. See what they have to say. All right, another bit of big other news is WordPress 7.4, as we mentioned earlier, reaches end of life on November the 28th. It will stop receiving any security updates from the PHP team. It was sunsetted quite a while ago, actually. I think it was a year ago that they stopped doing active development on 7.4. Now it's not going to receive any security updates either. Over 60% of all websites written in PHP are still using PHP 7 in some flavor. So that's a lot. WordPress powers 40% plus of all websites worldwide, which makes moving to PHP of paramount importance for all website owners. Staying on PHP 4 past the end of life, major security risk potentially could result in bigger global malware attacks. So I would recommend that you watch the webinar coming up on Monday about how to do that effectively. We do have a great blog post about that here as well. Most of the WordPress plugins and themes are yet to ensure compatibility with PHP 8. So unfortunately, this is going to be kind of test it and see what happens, right? Yeah, so the 7 steps for a safe upgrade to PHP 8 are here. And of course, you can join us with Tiffany Bridge of Nexus here on November 28th as we step through that whole process. All right, while also speaking about PHP, the PHP 8.2 release has been delayed. As they were rolling through their testing process at 8.2, the release team discovered some bugs and said, we're going to hit pause on this. They've pushed back the release candidate 7 to November the 24th and the release to December the 8th of 2022. Yeah. All right. Hey, it's Black Friday coming up. We talked a little bit about the iThemes deals coming up right there. iThemes 40% off, Cadence 40% off, Stellar up to 40% off of the brands. There are also a number of other Black Friday deal lists. Here are several of them. And I'm noticing I did not put AppSumo on this list, but I know there are many AppSumo lovers on the call today. So, of course, check out AppSumo and their Black Friday stuff. Here's the thing. You can real quick spend many hundreds of dollars on things that you won't use, right? So maybe just a suggestion from your buddy Nathan, okay, of maybe don't buy something unless you have specific plans on how you're going to use it in the next 90 days. How does that sound? That's a pretty good little rule of thumb there. Take advantage of the deals, but don't spend money that doesn't need to be spent, right? Okay. Moving along to news that is worth a look. So these are things that we ran into as we were preparing the rest of the things. They weren't really news items, but I thought you might really like these. So great blog post on the iThemes blog about how to fix the "your connection is not private" warning, which pops up quite a bit. Here's 10 tips to prepare your website for the holidays. Also, by the way, if you're not following the iThemes blog, they're really, the iThemes blog has always had good content. They're really doing a great job right now. So take a look at some of that, the new content that's out there on the iThemes blog. I found this to be a really interesting article from an agency owner named Tom Latch, who has had large and small agencies. And he says, look, big growth isn't for everyone. It's just a reflection about his history of agency ownership on poststatus.com. Really good stuff. There's a great article also on Post Status about the future of GiveWP and the block editor. Matt Cromwell, who's also now part of the iThemes leadership team, talks to Post Status about that. Good stuff there. If you want to know about redirects, there's an excellent guide on Search Engine Journal about how to do SEO redirects correctly. So take a look at that if you have questions about that. Good blog post on the core blog about the accessibility improvements. If you're following accessibility news, you can take a look at these 500 plus fixes and enhancements for accessibility purposes that were rolled into core in WordPress 6.1. How about this one? If you get confused by the alphabet soup of acronyms that keep your emails from going to spam, like SPF and DKIM and all that other stuff, this is an excellent article, probably one of the best. I won't say it's short, but it is thorough, but not gigantic. How about that? From Delicious Brains, so folks that really know what they're talking about spam filtering and how spam filters work. Take a look at that because it will demystify the reason your emails land in spam and how to deal with that. So here's an interesting case made by a plugin developer, Alex Denning, for why there should only be paid plugins, no more free plugins as a business case. That's interesting. Okay, this one I actually love. I think everybody ought to take a minute and check out speckyboy.com at this link, because he has combined, or the author, whoever they are, have combined 5 or 6 little overviews that are written in JavaScript and CSS. And it's like the old Commodore 64 screen in a Windows 95 environment that actually there's windows and you can drag it. It's fun, right? And this has no practical purpose whatsoever, but to remind you of days gone by. Here's a great article as you go into the holidays from the Grumpy Designer called "Are You Tired?" It talks about headspace and energy level and the fact that it's okay not to be okay, and just recognize that and some things to do about it. So that's a really great article about mental health and well-being. Apple has confirmed that the iPhone is getting the USB-C connection in the next version, likely because of EU mandates. They get fined for every phone if they didn't do this. So I think that's a great thing. That's about time, actually. And also one last little SEO tidbit is, yes, buying backlinks for SEO is still a thing, and even good professional SEOs buy backlinks. Here's an article that explains why, and why they do that and what to do and what not to do. So if you're doing SEO, you probably ought to read that on Search Engine Journal. All right, let's turn the page and talk about some community events. WordCamp Asia has announced their speakers. Their first round of speakers, at least, has been announced, and maybe the second one today. That's coming up February 17th through 19th in Bangkok, Thailand. I would love to go to that event, but yep, not going to do that one next year. But that'd be a lot of fun, I think. So take a look at that. There'll be an online version as well. Several upcoming WordCamps globally. WordCamp Sao Paulo in Brazil is November 25th. WordCamp Kolkata in West Bengal, India is in the middle of December. And WordCamp Cebu in the Philippines is February 11th of next year. Our WordCamp, my WordCamp, right here in Birmingham, Alabama, WP YALL is scheduled for February 4th and 5th, and I will just take this opportunity to tell you that tickets are now available. And the call for speakers is actually still open. So if you would like to come down to the South in Birmingham, February 4th and 5th, it's really nice generally. And actually, Birmingham at the beginning of February could be snow, or it could be 80 degrees. You just never know. So yeah, it's up for grabs. But it's a nice time to visit Birmingham. Check out WPYALL.com. And yeah, if you'd like to speak, there's still a call for speakers open for the next week or so. WordCamp Phoenix is scheduled toward the end of March, and WordCamp Buffalo, New York on May the 6th. One last thing I'll mention is that the 2022 WP Awards for the Best of WordPress, the vote is still open for the next week or so. If you haven't voted yet, go to the WPweekly.com/awards 20. That should be 2022. Anyway, it's there. Or if you just go here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is last year's results. Oh, I missed that typo. This is last year's results. This is this year's vote down here at the bottom. So vote for your favorite in the categories of things, and they let everybody know what those results were. So check that out. That is still good through November the 30th. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of the WordPress News Roundup for November 2022. I've just dropped today's slides in the chat once again. If you missed those earlier, download that for all those links. We're back tomorrow for members for office hours here on iThemes Training. One day early, it's Wednesday this week because of Thanksgiving in the States here on Thursday. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and say goodbye. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, members, here on office hours on iThemes Training, where we go further together.